I always thought respect was earned through hard work. I was wrong. My name is Walter Grayson. I'm 64, divorced, with memories that sting, retired, but not by choice. To my son-in-law, Ethan, I'm just the old man with the rusty truck. This is my story. It's about being mocked. It's about fighting back. Before we continue, please subscribe and tell us where you're from in the comments. It started at a family barbecue. My daughter, Sarah, invited me to their new house. A big place, all glass and sharp angles. Ethan's pride and joy. I pulled up in my old Ford pickup. It's seen better days. Rust on the fenders, a creak in the door. But it's mine, paid for with years of sweat. Ethan stood on the porch, arms crossed. He smirked as I parked. "Still driving that junk heap, Walt?" His voice dripped with amusement. Sarah laughed, a nervous sound. "It gets me around," I said, keeping my tone even. "Barely," he shot back. "You should have sold it years ago." I felt my jaw tighten. Sarah looked away, fussing with the grill. I let it go, for her. Inside, Ethan kept at it. Every chance he got, a jab. "Walt, you ever think about upgrading? Get something that doesn't scream poor?" His friends chuckled. Sarah stayed quiet, her eyes on her plate. I gripped my fork, said nothing. That night, I drove home. The truck rumbled along the dark roads. My hands shook on the wheel. I'd built a life for Sarah, sacrificed everything after her mother left. And now? Her husband laughed in my face. The next week, Sarah called. "Dad, can you come over? Ethan wants to talk." Her voice sounded tight, forced. I didn't like it, but I went, for her. I pulled up to their house. Ethan was waiting, a grin on his face. "Nice truck," he said, sarcasm thick. "Got a minute? I need a favor." "A favor? For me?" I followed him inside. Sarah wasn't there. "I'm starting a business," Ethan said, leaning back in his chair. "Real estate. Big money. I need your help." "My help?" I asked. "With what?" "Your name," he said. "You sign some papers, I get a loan. Easy." I stared at him. "You're joking." "Nope," he said, grinning wider. "Your family, Walt. Help me out." I said no. Firmly. Ethan's grin faded. His eyes turned cold. "You'll regret that," he said. "Sarah deserves better than a stubborn old man." I walked out, my blood boiling. Regret? He didn't know me. He didn't know what I'd built. That night I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing his voice. Junk heap. Stubborn old man. I saw Sarah's face, her silence. Was she ashamed of me? Had I failed her? A week later I got a letter. From the bank. My name was on a loan. $300,000. I hadn't signed anything. My heart pounded. I called the bank. "There's been a mistake," I said. "No mistake," the clerk replied. "Your signature's on the documents." My signature? I drove to the bank. They showed me the papers. My name, scrawled in ink, not my handwriting. Ethan. I called Sarah. No answer. I drove to their house. Ethan opened the door, smug as ever. "What's up, Walt?" "You forged my name," I said, holding up the papers. "For a loan. $300,000. He didn't flinch. "Prove it." "Where's Sarah?" I asked. "Out," he said. "She doesn't need this drama." I wanted to hit him. Instead, I turned and left. My truck roared to life. I wasn't done. Not by a long shot. I hired a lawyer, Clara, sharp and no nonsense. She dug into the loan. "It's fraud," she said, "but Ethan's covered his tracks. We need proof." Proof. I started watching Ethan, his business, his meetings. I followed him one night. He met two men in a parking lot. Shady types, not real estate guys. They handed him a briefcase. He laughed, clapped their shoulders. What was he into? I needed answers. I called an old friend, Vince, a private investigator. "Find out what Ethan's doing," I said. "Everything." Vince came back in days. "He's not in real estate," he said. "He's laundering money. The loan? It's tied to some bad people." My stomach dropped. "Bad people?" "Criminals," Vince said. "Ethan's in over his head, and he's using your name to do it." I felt sick. Sarah was in that house. With him. My daughter. My everything. Another letter came. Handwritten. From Sarah. "Dad, I'm sorry. Ethan said it was for us. For our future. I didn't know. Please don't hate me. Sarah. Hate her? Never. But Ethan? He'd pay. I swore it. I kept digging. Vince found more. Ethan's business was a front. Fake deals, offshore accounts. He'd used my name to borrow more than $300,000. He'd put my house, my home, as collateral. My house. The one I'd built for Sarah. For her mother. For us. I sat in my kitchen, staring at her drawings on the wall. A little girl's dreams, faded now, like mine. I wrote a letter back. Not to send, to feel something. Sarah, I'll save you. Ethan will regret this. I tucked it in a box, next to her old drawings. And when I saw Ethan's smug face in my mind, I knew he'd learn who I really was. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was more, much more. I sat in my truck, engines still running. Ethan's smug grin burned in my mind. He'd forged my name, taken $300,000, put my house on the line. And Sarah? My daughter was caught in his web. I wasn't helpless. Not yet. I'd make him pay. Vince kept digging. His calls came late, voice low. Ethan's deeper than I thought, he said. Those men he met, they're not investors. They're muscle for a guy named Klein. Klein? I asked, gripping the phone. Big player, money laundering, offshore deals. Ethan's just a pawn. My heart sank. Sarah lived with this man, my daughter, my only family. I drove to their house again, needed to see Sarah. The lights were off, nobody home. I waited in my truck. Hours passed. Then I saw her car pull in, alone. Dad? Sarah's voice trembled as she got out. What are you doing here? Ethan forged my name, I said, for a loan, $300,000. Her face paled. He said it was for us, for the business. Business? I snorted. He's laundering money, Sarah. She shook her head, tears in her eyes. I didn't know. I wanted to believe her, but doubt crept in. Was she lying? Protecting him? I hugged her anyway. She felt small, like when she was a girl. Stay safe, I whispered. I will, she said, but her voice was shaky. I drove home, my mind racing. Ethan wasn't just a jerk. He was dangerous. The next day, Vince sent me photos. Ethan, meeting Klein's men again. Briefcase exchanges in dark lots. My name was on their papers. My house was their collateral. I felt sick. What now? I asked Vince. We need proof, he said. Something solid to nail him. Proof. I'd get it, whatever it took. I started tailing Ethan myself. My old truck blended in. Nobody noticed me. I watched him leave fancy restaurants. Meet shady guys in suits. He laughed, carefree, like he hadn't stolen my life. One night, I followed him to a warehouse, middle of nowhere. He went inside. I parked far off, lights out. Men came and went. Boxes changed hands. I snapped photos with my phone. My hands shook. This wasn't real estate. This was crime. Sarah called the next morning. Her voice was a whisper. Dad, I found something. Papers. In Ethan's office. What kind? I asked, heart pounding. Bank records. Your name's on them. And others. Strange names. Bring them to me, I said. Now. I can't, she said. He'll know. Then take pictures, I said, and stay safe. She sent the photos an hour later. Pages of numbers. My signature, forged again. Accounts in the Caymans. Klein's name was there, circled in red. Ethan was in deep, and he dragged me with him. I forwarded the photos to Vince. This enough? I asked. It's a start, he said, but we need more. Klein's untouchable. Untouchable? Nobody was untouchable. Not anymore. I wrote another letter, not to send, to keep sane. Ethan, you mocked my truck, my life. You'll regret it. I tucked it in the box, next to Sarah's drawings. Then I got a call. Not Vince, not Sarah, a stranger. Walter Grayson? The voice was cold, smooth. You're asking questions. Stop. Who is this? I demanded. Someone who knows you, and your daughter. The line went dead. My blood froze. They knew about Sarah. I called her. No answer. Panic clawed at me. I drove to her house. The door was ajar. I ran inside, shouting her name. Empty. Her phone was on the counter, a note beside it. "Stay out of it, old man, or she pays." My knees buckled. Sarah was gone. Ethan's doing? Klein's? I didn't know. I called Vince, voice shaking. "They took Sarah. Find her." "I'm on it," he said. "Don't do anything stupid." Stupid wasn't my style, but waiting wasn't either. I grabbed my old hunting rifle, checked the chamber, loaded, ready. I went back to the warehouse, middle of the night. My truck parked in the shadows. I watched, waited. Ethan showed up. Alone, this time. He carried a briefcase. Looked nervous. I stepped out, rifle hidden under my coat. "Ethan," I called. He spun around, eyes wide. "Walt? What the hell?" "Where's Sarah?" I demanded, stepping closer. "She's fine," he said, too fast. "At home." "Liar," I said. "I saw the note." His face changed, fear, then anger. "You're in over your head, old man." Before I could answer, headlights flashed. A black SUV pulled up. 2 men got out, Klein's men. I ducked behind a crate, heart pounding. Ethan handed them the briefcase. They didn't shake hands, just left. I stayed low, my mind raced. Sarah was in danger. Ethan was the key. I'd follow him, find her. Vince called at dawn. "Got a lead," he said. "Sarah's at a motel. Klein's crew has her." "Where?" I asked, gripping the wheel. "Outside Chicago. I'm sending the address." I didn't wait. I drove. My truck rattled, but it held. Ethan's mocking laugh echoed in my head. He'd learn, soon. The motel was run down. Peeling paint, flickering neon sign. I parked across the street, watched. A man stood guard outside room 12. Big guy, scar on his face, Klein's muscle. I called Vince. "I'm here. What now?" "Wait for me," he said. "Don't go in alone." I didn't listen. Sarah was in there, my daughter. I grabbed the rifle, moved fast. The guard didn't see me coming. I knocked him out with the rifle butt. Quiet, clean. I kicked the door open. Sarah was inside, tied to a chair. Her eyes widened. "Dad?" I cut the ropes. "We're leaving. Now." She clung to me, sobbing. "Ethan lied. He's working with them." "I know," I said. "He'll pay." We got to the truck. Drove fast. My phone buzzed. "Vince, Klein's men are coming. Get out." Too late. Headlights in my rear view. Black. SUV. They were on us. I floored it. My old truck groaned. But it held. Sarah gripped my arm. "Dad, I'm sorry." "Not now," I said. "We're not done." And when I saw Ethan's smug face in my mind, I knew he'd learn who I really was. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I had secrets. Big ones. The black SUV was gaining on us. My old truck groaned under the strain. Sarah clung to the seat, her face pale. "Dad, they're getting closer," she whispered. I didn't look back. "Hold on," I said. My hands gripped the wheel. I took a sharp turn, tires screeching. The SUV followed, headlights blinding in the mirror. My truck wasn't built for this, but it was all I had. I floored the gas. The engine roared, pushing harder. Sarah's voice shook. "What do they want?" "You," I said, "and me, because of Ethan." She went quiet, her eyes filled with tears. I swerved onto a back road, narrow, dark, lined with trees. The SUV stayed close, too close. I knew these roads, years of driving to job sites. I could lose them. A mile later, I saw my chance, an old dirt path hidden by brush. I turned hard, killed the lights. The truck lurched but held. The SUV sped past, missing us. Sarah exhaled. "Are we safe?" "For now," I said. "But we're not done." I drove to a gas station, out of sight, parked behind a dumpster. Sarah was shaking, her hands clasped tight. "Dad, I didn't know Ethan was like this," she said. "He promised me a future." "His promises are lies," I said. "He used my name, my house." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "What do we do now?" "We fight back," I said. starting with Klein. I called Vince, told him about the chase, the motel, Sarah. They're after us, I said. Klein's men. I've got a contact, Vince said. Ex-cop. Works freelance. He can help. Set it up, I said, and find Ethan. Vince paused. Be careful, Walter. Klein's not playing games. Neither was I. We met Vince's contact, Ray, at a diner, middle of nowhere. He was grizzled, like me, ex-cop turned investigator. He slid a folder across the table. Klein's operation, he said. Ethan's small fry. Klein's the shark. I opened the folder. Photos, bank records, names. Ethan's face was there, smirking, always smirking, meeting Klein's men, signing papers with my name. Ethan's in debt to Klein, Ray said. Big debt. Your house is collateral. Sarah gasped. My home? Dad, how? He forged my signature, I said, like he forged my trust. Ray leaned forward. Klein's got a shipment coming, tomorrow night, Chicago docks. What kind? I asked. Cash, untraceable. Ethan's delivering it. My blood boiled. Ethan, playing criminal with my life. I want in, I said. Ray raised an eyebrow. You're no cop, Walter. I'm no fool either, I said. Set it up. Sarah grabbed my arm. Dad, it's too dangerous. I looked at her. You're my daughter. I'm not losing you. We planned it that night. Ray had connections. Feds were watching Klein, but needed evidence. Ethan's shipment could be it. If I got proof, Klein would fall. And Ethan with him. I didn't tell Sarah everything. She didn't need to know. Not yet. The next night, I drove to the docks. My truck blended in, rusty and unremarkable. Ray was nearby, wired with a recorder. Sarah stayed with Vince, safe for now. I parked in the shadows, watching. Ethan arrived, nervous, briefcase in hand. Klein's men met him. Big guys, armed. They checked the case, nodded. Ethan looked relieved. I snapped photos. My phone's camera wasn't great, but it worked. Every face, every move, evidence. Then it went wrong. One of Klein's men looked my way, straight at my truck. I froze. He shouted something. Ethan turned, his eyes wide. He saw me. Get out of here, he yelled, waving me off. I didn't move. Klein's men drew guns. I ducked low, heart pounding. Shots rang out. Not at me. At the water. A warning. I started the truck, floored it. Bullets pinged the tailgate. My old Ford held strong. I called Ray, breathing hard. They saw me. I got photos. Good, he said. Get to the safe house. Now. I drove, checking my mirrors. No SUV. Yet. Sarah was waiting at the safe house. A small cabin, hidden in the woods. She ran to me, hugged me tight. Dad, you're okay? For now, I said, but Ethan knows I'm on to him. Ray arrived an hour later, took my phone, uploaded the photos. These are gold, he said. Feds can use them. Klein's done. And Ethan? I asked. He's a liability now, Ray said. Klein might cut him loose, or worse. I didn't care about Ethan, not anymore, but Sarah did. She sat by the window, staring out. I loved him, Dad, she said. How did I miss this? You trusted him, I said, like I trusted you. Her eyes met mine, full of guilt. I'm sorry, for everything. I nodded. We'll fix this, together. Vince called the next morning. Ethan's on the move. Left Chicago, heading your way. Why? I asked. He's scared, Vince said. Klein's men are after him. He's got nowhere else to go. Let him come. I was ready. Ethan showed up at dusk, knocked on the cabin door. Sarah opened it, her face hard. What do you want? She asked. I messed up, Ethan said, his voice cracked. They're gonna kill me, Sarah. You used my dad, she said. You used me. I had no choice, he said. Klein forced me. I stepped forward, rifle in hand. You always had a choice, I said. You chose wrong. Ethan's eyes darted to the rifle. Walt, please, I'll fix this. Fix it? I laughed, cold and sharp. You mocked my truck, my life. You stole my name. "I was desperate," he said. "I'm sorry." Sorry wasn't enough. Not anymore. Ray pulled me aside. "Feds are moving in. Tonight. Klein's shipment's the key." "What about Ethan?" I asked. "He's bait," Ray said. "Let him run. Klein will follow." I looked at Sarah. Her face was torn, love and anger fighting inside her. "Let him go," I said. "He's not worth it." Ethan left, tail between his legs. I watched him drive away. My truck sat outside, rusty but loyal. Ethan thought it was junk. He'd learn soon enough. I had secrets, bigger than he could imagine. And when I saw Ethan's smug face in my mind, I knew he'd learn who I really was. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was a man with a plan. The safe house felt too small. Sarah sat by the fire, her eyes distant. I gripped my rifle, watching the windows. Ethan was out there, running. Klein's men were hunting him. And us. I wasn't scared. I was angry. Ethan had mocked me, used me, endangered my daughter. Ray called at midnight. His voice was tense. "Feds are ready. Klein's shipment is tonight." "Where?" I asked, keeping my voice low. "Chicago docks, warehouse 17. Ethan's delivering." I glanced at Sarah. She didn't need to hear this. "I'm in," I said. "Walter, you're not trained for this," Ray said. "Stay back." "Like hell," I said. "He took my life. I'm taking his." Sarah overheard. She grabbed my arm. "Dad, don't go. It's too dangerous." I looked into her eyes, scared, but fierce. Like her mother, Ellen. "I have to," I said. "For you, for us." She nodded, tears falling. "Just come back." I hugged her tight. "I will." I drove to the docks alone. My truck rattled, but it held. The night was cold, fog thick. Warehouse 17 loomed ahead, dark and quiet. Too quiet. I parked in the shadows. Ray was nearby, wired up. Feds were watching, hidden. I had my phone, camera ready. If Ethan showed, I'd get proof. He did. Right on time. Ethan stepped out of a black sedan, briefcase in hand. Klein's men met him, 3 of them, armed. They checked the case, nodded. Ethan looked twitchy, glancing around. I snapped photos. My hands were steady. Every shot was evidence. Ethan's downfall. Then it went bad. A shout. One of Klein's men pointed my way. They'd seen my truck. Ethan froze, his eyes locking on me. "Walt?" he yelled. I didn't move. Guns came out. I ducked behind a crate. Bullets hit the warehouse wall. My truck took a hit, glass shattering. I cursed under my breath. Ray's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Get out, Walter! Now!" I ran, keeping low. My truck was still running. I jumped in, floored it. The sedan chased me. Tires screeched through the fog. I weaved through alleys, heart pounding. They were fast, too fast. But I knew these streets. I lost them in a maze of back roads. I got to the safe house at dawn. Sarah ran to me, sobbing. "Dad, you're okay?" "Barely," I said, catching my breath. My truck's windshield was cracked, but we were alive. Ray arrived, grim-faced. "Feds got one of Klein's men. Your photos helped." "And Ethan?" I asked. "Gone," Ray said. "He slipped away, but Klein's pissed. He'll come for him." Sarah sat me down. Her hands shook as she poured coffee. "Dad, why's Ethan doing this?" "He's greedy," I said, "and weak. He thought he could play with Klein." She looked away. "I thought he loved me." I touched her hand. "He doesn't deserve you." Vince called later. Found something, Ellen's old files, from her real estate days. Ellen, my ex-wife. She'd been a broker before we split. "What kind?" I asked. "Bank records." "Investments. Your name's on them." My stomach twisted. "What investments?" "Properties," Vince said. "Big ones, worth millions. Ellen hid them from you." "Millions?" I didn't believe it. Ellen left me with nothing but Sarah, or so I thought. I met Vince at his office. He handed me a folder. Deeds, titles, bank statements, all in my name. A mansion, lakefront, Chicago, worth $10 million, and more. Condos, rentals, land. How? I asked, my voice hoarse. Ellen played the market, Vince said. Kept it secret, even from you. I sat in my truck, staring at the folder. My rusty Ford, mocked by Ethan, was parked outside a diner. But I owned a mansion, a fortune. And Ethan had no idea. I laughed, a bitter sound. He'd called me a failure, a nobody. Soon he'd see. Sarah didn't know either. I didn't tell her, not yet. She was still shaken, scared. I needed her safe before I played my hand. Ray called. Feds are closing in. Klein's meeting Ethan tonight. Last chance. Where? I asked. Old factory. South side. Be there. I told Sarah to stay put. She begged me not to go. Dad, please. Let the feds handle it. They can't, I said. Ethan's my problem. I'll finish this. Her eyes searched mine. What aren't you telling me? I smiled, soft but firm. Trust me, Sarah. Just this once. I drove to the factory. My truck blended into the shadows. Ray was there, feds in position. Ethan arrived, alone. No briefcase this time. He looked scared, pacing. Klein's men showed up. 2 cars, 4 guys, guns drawn. Ethan raised his hands, pleading. I couldn't hear him, but I knew. He was begging for his life. I snapped more photos, sent them to Ray. The feds moved in, silent. Lights flashed, sirens blared. Klein's men scattered. Ethan froze, caught. I stepped out, rifle in hand. Ethan saw me. His face went white. Walt, what are you doing? Ending this, I said. You mocked me, stole from me, hurt my daughter. I'm sorry, he stammered. I'll pay you back. Too late, I said. The feds cuffed him, dragged him away. Sarah was waiting at the safe house. She hugged me, tears streaming. Is it over? Not yet, I said, but it will be. I had a plan. Ethan thought he knew me. He didn't. And when I saw Ethan's smug face in my mind, I knew he'd learn who I really was. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was a man with power. The safe house was too quiet. Sarah slept on the couch, exhausted. I sat by the window, rifle across my lap. Ethan was in custody, but Klein was still out there. My truck, shot up and battered, stood outside, mocked by Ethan, loyal to me. I wasn't done, not until Klein paid. Ray called at sunrise. His voice was sharp. Feds have Ethan! He's talking! Talking about what? I asked, glancing at Sarah. Klein's operation. Names, deals, accounts. He's spilling everything. I clenched my jaw. Will it stick? Maybe, Ray said. But Klein's slippery. We need more. More. I had more. Ellen's files. My secret. I pulled out the folder Vince gave me. Ellen's hidden fortune. A mansion worth $10 million. Condos, land, accounts. All in my name. I still couldn't believe it. Ellen, my ex-wife, had built an empire. Kept it from me. Why? I needed answers. But first, I needed Sarah safe. Sarah woke, her eyes red. Is Ethan okay? She asked. He's with the feds, I said. He's not your problem anymore. She nodded, but her face was torn. I still love him, Dad. I swallowed my anger. He used you, hurt you. That's not love. She looked away. I know. Vince arrived at noon. Brought more of Ellen's files. Found these in her old office, he said. Letters, contracts, notes. She was tracking Klein. Tracking him? I asked, heart racing. Before you split, Vince said. She knew he was dirty, kept evidence. I opened the folder. Ellen's handwriting, neat and precise, lists of deals. Klein's name, circled, dates, places, amounts. She'd been watching him for years. Why didn't she tell me? I asked, voice low. She wanted to protect you, Vince said, and Sarah. Protect me by hiding a fortune? I felt a pang of guilt. Ellen and I fought too much. I drove her away. But she'd left me this, a weapon. Ray called again. Klein's moving. Tonight, he's meeting a buyer. For what? I asked. Data. Stolen identities. Worth millions. Ethan was supposed to deliver. I gripped the phone. Where? Abandoned mill, north side. Feds are setting a trap. I'm coming, I said. Walter, don't, Ray said. You're not a cop. I'm not a fool either, I said. Set it up. Sarah overheard. She stood, hands shaking. Dad, you can't. They'll kill you. I won't let Klein hurt you, I said. Not again. Her eyes filled with tears. I don't want to lose you. You won't, I said. I promise. I drove to the mill. My truck's cracked windshield caught the moonlight. Ray met me a mile out. Handed me a vest. Bulletproof, he said, just in case. I nodded, slipping it on. My rifle felt heavy. Where's the feds? Hidden, Ray said. They'll move when Klein shows. I checked my phone. Ellen's files were backed up, ready to send. If Klein wanted a fight, I'd give him one. The mill was dark, rusted machinery looming like ghosts. I hid behind a stack of crates. Ray was nearby, wired up. Feds were in position, silent. Klein arrived. Black, SUV, same as before. 3 men with him. No Ethan. I held my breath, camera ready. Then I saw her, Sarah, in the SUV's back seat, hands tied. My heart stopped. She was supposed to be safe. At the safe house. How? I texted Ray, frantic. Sarah's here. They've got her. His reply was instant. Stay put. Feds see her. We'll get her out. Stay put. My daughter was in danger. I gripped my rifle, moved closer. Klein stepped out, a tall man with cold eyes. He barked orders. His men opened the SUV, dragged Sarah out. She struggled, but they held her tight. I wanted to shoot, to run to her, but I waited. Feds needed time. Klein spoke, voice sharp. Where's Ethan? He owes me. Sarah spat at him. He's gone. You're done. Klein laughed. You're leverage, sweetheart. Your dad will pay. My blood boiled. He knew about me, my name, my house, and now my daughter. I aimed my rifle. Steady, ready. Ray's voice crackled. Walter, don't. Feds are moving. Too late. Klein's man raised a gun at Sarah. I fired. 1 shot. He dropped. Chaos erupted. Feds swarmed in, shouting. Klein's men fired back. I ran to Sarah, cut her ropes. Dad, she cried, clinging to me. Run, I said, pushing her toward cover. Bullets flew. I shielded Sarah, my vest taking a hit. Pain shot through me. But I kept moving. We reached my truck. I shoved her inside. Stay down, I said. The feds took control. Klein's men were down. But Klein was gone, slipped away in the chaos. Sarah sobbed as we drove. I'm sorry, Dad. I went back for Ethan. You went back? I asked, voice sharp. I thought I could save him, she said. I was wrong. I gripped the wheel. He's not worth it. Ray met us at the safe house. Fed's got enough, he said. Klein's on the run. And Ethan? I asked. Still talking, Ray said. He's naming names. Might walk. Walk? After everything? I shook my head. He won't walk free from me. I opened Ellen's folder again. Her notes had a pattern. Klein's deals, yes. But something else. A name kept appearing. Marcus Gray, Ellen's old partner, before we split. Who's Marcus Gray? I asked Vince. He frowned. Big shot. Real estate. Ellen worked with him. Why? I showed him the notes. She was tracking him, too. Vince's eyes widened. Gray's connected to Klein. Deeply. I felt a chill. Ellen hadn't just hidden a fortune. She'd hidden a war. Against men like Klein. Like Gray. And I was holding the key. Sarah looked at me. What's in those files, Dad? Answers, I said. And leverage. I wrote another letter. Not to send. To stay focused. Ethan, you mocked my truck. My life. Soon you'll see my power. I tucked it away. Klein was out there. Gray was out there. But I had Ellen's secret. And a mansion. Finding out my house was at stake felt like a knife in my gut, but I wasn't done fighting. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was a man with a legacy. The safe house smelled of damp wood. Sarah sat by the window, her face pale. I clutched Ellen's folder, my fingers tracing her handwriting. Marcus Gray's name stared back at me. Klein was on the run. Ethan was in custody. But Gray, he was the shadow behind it all. I called Vince, my voice low. "Tell me about Marcus Gray." He hesitated. "Big player, real estate tycoon, Klein's boss, maybe." "Ellen knew him," I said. "Her notes prove it." Vince sucked in a breath. "That's bad news, Walter. Gray's untouchable." "Nobody's untouchable," I said. "Not anymore." Sarah overheard. She turned, eyes wide. "Dad, who's Marcus Gray?" "Someone your mother knew," I said, "before we split." Her brow furrowed. "Why's his name in her files?" I didn't answer. Not yet. The truth was too heavy. Ellen's secret fortune, $10 million mansion, condos, land, was tied to Gray. I needed to know how. Vince sent more files. Scanned pages from Ellen's old office. Contracts, emails, coded notes. Gray's name was everywhere. Real estate deals, offshore accounts, shady partnerships. One note chilled me. Ellen's handwriting, dated 10 years ago. "Gray's dangerous. Don't trust him." I felt a knot in my chest. Ellen had been in deep. And she'd kept it from me. Ray called, his voice urgent. "Feds lost Klein. He's gone underground." "And Ethan?" I asked, gripping the phone. "Still talking," Ray said, "but he's scared. Says Gray's coming for him." Gray. The name was a weight. "Where's the meat?" I asked. "No meat," Ray said. "Gray doesn't show himself. Ever." "Then we make him," I said. "I've got something he wants." Ellen's files were my weapon. Proof of Gray's deals. His crimes. I spent hours reading. Connecting dots. Gray wasn't just Klein's boss. He was the architect of their network. Money laundering, data theft, blackmail. And my name was on his papers. Forged, like Ethan's loan. Gray had used me too. Sarah watched me, her voice soft. "Dad, what's in those files?" "Answers," I said. "About your mother. About me." She touched my arm. "You don't have to do this alone." I smiled, but it was tight. "I'm not." "Ellen's with me." Vince came by at dusk, brought a laptop. "Found something else," he said. "Ellen's old emails, password protected." "Can you crack 'em?" I asked. "Already did," he said, opening the laptop. "Read this." An email from Ellen, to Gray, dated a month before we split. "Marcus, I'm done. You can't use Walter's name anymore. I'll expose you." My heart stopped. Ellen had threatened Gray, and paid for it. "What does this mean?" Sarah asked, her voice shaking. "Your mother was brave," I said. "She stood up to a monster." Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "And he hurt her?" I didn't know, not yet, but I'd find out. Ray called again. "Got a lead. Gray's in Chicago, penthouse, downtown." "How do we get to him?" I asked. "You don't," Ray said. "He's got security, money, power." "I've got something better," I said. "Ellen's proof." Ray went quiet. "You're playing with fire, Walter." "Let it burn," I said. I told Sarah to stay at the safe house. She argued, but I was firm. "You're all I have," I said. "Stay safe." She hugged me, her grip fierce. "Don't die, Dad." "I won't," I said, but I wasn't sure. I drove to Chicago. My truck rattled, but it got me there. The penthouse was a glass tower, gleaming under city lights. Gray's world, not mine. I sent a message, 1 page from Ellen's files. A deal linking Gray to Klein. My note was simple. "I know who you are. Meet me." I waited in a coffee shop across the street. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. "Grayson," a smooth voice said. "You're persistent." "Marcus Gray?" I asked, heart pounding. "You've got something of mine," he said. "Let's talk." He named a place. Old theater, edge of town. Midnight. I told Ray. He cursed. "It's a trap, Walter." "Maybe," I said, "but it's my only shot." I checked my rifle. Loaded Ellen's files onto a flash drive. backed them up. If Gray wanted a fight, I was ready. The theater was dark, seats covered in dust. I stood in the lobby, flash drive in my pocket. Ray was outside, feds on standby. My truck waited in the alley, shot up but stubborn. Gray appeared, alone, tall, tailored suit, eyes like ice. "You're a long way from your truck, Grayson." "You used my name," I said. "My house, my family." He smiled, cold. "Ellen was trouble too. Look where it got her." My blood ran cold. "What did you do to her?" "She got greedy," Gray said. "Thought she could threaten me." I gripped the flash drive. "She left me proof. You're done." His smile didn't waver. "Hand it over, or Sarah pays." I heard a noise. Footsteps. Klein's men, coming from the wings. I raised my rifle. "Call them off," I said. Gray laughed. "You're out of your depth, old man." The feds burst in. Lights flashed, guns drawn. Klein's men froze. Gray didn't move, just stared at me. "Sarah was safe," Ray said, "at the safe house." But Gray's words lingered. Ellen, greedy, no. She was a fighter, like me. I handed the flash drive to Ray. "Get this to the feds." He nodded. "You did good, Walter. Klein's down. Gray's next." Back at the safe house, Sarah hugged me. "Is it over?" she asked. "Not yet," I said. "Gray's still out there." She looked at me, scared but strong. "What's next, Dad?" I thought of Ellen's files. The mansion. My secret. "We finished this," I said. Everyone thought I'd given up, but they didn't know the card I was holding. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was a man with a fortune. The safe house was a cage. Sarah paced, her hands twisting together. I sat with Ellen's files, Marcus Gray's name burning a hole in my mind. My truck, battered but standing, waited outside. Gray thought he'd won. He hadn't seen my hand yet. Ray called at dawn. His voice was calm, too calm. "Feds have the flash drive," he said. "Klein's men are talking. Gray's feeling the heat." "So it's over?" I asked, hoping for once. "Not yet," Ray said. "Gray's got friends, high up." I clenched my fist. Then we hit harder. Sarah sat beside me, her eyes tired. "Dad, can we go home?" "Home, my house, the one Ethan used as collateral. Soon," I said. "We need Gray first." She nodded, but her voice was small. "I'm scared, Dad." I hugged her. "You're safe with me." Vince came by with more of Ellen's files. A small notebook, leather-bound, her handwriting neat as ever. Pages of numbers, addresses, names. One entry stood out. Gray's safe. Lakefront mansion. Key code 9274. My heart skipped. The mansion, my mansion, Ellen's secret. "This is it," I said. Vince frowned. "What's in there?" "Gray's secrets," I said, "and our way out." I told Ray about the notebook. He didn't like it. "You're walking into a lion's den, Walter." "I've got no choice," I said. "Gray threatened Sarah." Ray sighed. "Feds can't touch the mansion. No warrant." "Then I go alone," I said. Sarah overheard, her voice sharp. "Dad, no, you'll get killed." "I won't," I said. "Ellen left me this. I'll use it." I drove to the mansion that night. My truck looked out of place, rusty against the gated estate. Lake Michigan shimmered beyond, cold and vast. I punched in 9,274. The gate opened. Inside, the mansion was a fortress. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, empty. Too quiet. I found the safe in the study, hidden behind a painting. Code 9,274 worked. Inside was a hard drive. Papers. Photos. Ellen's face stared back at me, younger, smiling, with Gray. My stomach twisted. Ellen and Gray? Partners? Lovers? I didn't know. The papers told a story. Real estate deals, forged names. Mine included. Ellen had been in deep, but she'd turned on him. A note in her handwriting. "Walter, if you find this, use it. End Gray." I felt her strength, her fight. It was mine now. I took the hard drive, slipped out. My truck roared to life, unnoticed. Back at the safe house, I plugged it in. Files loaded. Bank records, emails, voice recordings, Gray's entire network. Sarah watched, her voice soft. "Mom did this?" "She was a fighter," I said. "Like you." She smiled, faint but real. "What now, Dad?" "We end this," I said. "For her." Ray met me at a diner, took the hard drive. "This is big," he said. "Feds can bury Gray with this." "Will they?" I asked. "He's got friends." Ray nodded. "We'll leak it. Press, internet, everywhere." I liked that. Gray's empire, exposed. Ethan's smug grin wiped clean. Sarah stayed close, her fear easing. "Can we go home now?" she asked again. "Soon," I said. One last step. I didn't tell her about Ethan. He was out, feds cutting him a deal. I wasn't done with him. Vince called, voice tight. "Ethan's at your house." "Looking for you." "My house?" My blood boiled. "What does he want?" "Money," Vince said. "He knows about the mansion." "How? I hadn't told anyone." "Except Sarah. And Ray." I drove home, rifle in the back. Sarah stayed with Ray, safe. My house looked the same, small, worn, mine. Ethan's car was in the driveway. Shiny, new, mocking. He stood on the porch, pacing. "Walt," he said, seeing me, "we need to talk." "Talk?" I said, stepping out. "You stole my name, my home." "I was desperate," he said. "Klein forced me." "Liar," I said, voice cold. "You mocked me, laughed at my truck." Ethan's eyes darted. "I know about the mansion. Ellen's money. Give me a cut." I laughed, sharp and bitter. "You think you deserve it?" "I'm family," he said. "Sarah's husband." "Not for long," I said. "She's done with you." His face twisted. "You're nothing, Walt. A nobody with a junk truck." I stepped closer, my voice low. "You don't know me." He smirked. "I know enough. Hand over the files." I shook my head. "They're with the feds. You're done." His smirk faded. He lunged, grabbing for my pocket. I shoved him back, hard. He stumbled, fell. Ray's car pulled up. Feds with him. They cuffed Ethan, dragged him away. His shouts echoed. "You'll regret this, Walt." I watched him go. No regrets. Not anymore. Sarah called, safe with Vince. "Dad, is Ethan gone?" "For good," I said. "Come home." She paused. "What about Gray?" "He's next," I said. "I've got Ellen's weapon." I sat in my kitchen, Ellen's notebook open. Her words were my guide. Gray's safe had given me his secrets. Now I'd use them. Everyone thought I'd given up, but they didn't know the card I was holding. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was a man with Ellen's legacy. My kitchen felt empty without Sarah. She was with Vince, safe for now. Ellen's notebook lay open, her words a map to Gray's downfall. My truck sat outside, bullet-scarred but standing. Ethan was gone. Klein was running. Gray was next. Ray called at noon, his voice steady. "Feds are moving on Gray's network. Your files helped." "Will they get him?" I asked, gripping the phone. "They're close," Ray said, "but Gray's clever. He's covering tracks." I thought of Ellen's note, and Gray. "I've got more," I said. I met Ray at a diner, handed him copies of Ellen's hard drive, bank records, voice recordings, Gray's deals. "This nails him," I said. Ray scanned the files. "Jesus, Walter, Ellen was fearless." "She was," I said, my throat tight, "and I'm finishing it." Sarah called, her voice soft. "Dad, can I come home?" "Soon," I said. "Gray's still out there." "I'm scared," she said. "Ethan's gone, but I feel watched." My stomach twisted. "Stay with Vince. Don't move." I drove to my house, rifle in the back. Everything looked normal, too normal. I checked the windows, the doors, nothing out of place. But I felt it, eyes on me. Inside, I found a note, slipped under the door, typed, "No signature. You're out of time, Grayson. Give up the files." Gray. He knew where I lived. My heart pounded. I called Vince. "Keep Sarah close," I said. "Gray's watching." "Got it," he said. "She's safe. You okay?" "No," I said, "but I will be." I grabbed Ellen's notebook. Her words were my anchor. "Gray's dangerous. Don't trust him." Ray set up a meeting. "Neutral ground. A park downtown. Feds will watch," he said. "If Gray shows, we've got him." I didn't trust the feds. Not fully. Gray had friends in high places. But I agreed. "Set it up," I said. Sarah begged me not to go. "Dad, please, let them handle it." "This is personal," I said. "For your mother. For you." The park was quiet. Benches empty. My truck was parked nearby. Rusty, but ready. I carried the flash drive. A decoy. The real files were safe. Backed up. Gray didn't show. A man did. Young, sharp, snake-like eyes. "Grayson?" he asked, sitting beside me. "Who's this?" I said, hand on my knife. "Gray's friend," he said, smiling thin. "Hand over the files." "No deal," I said. "Tell Gray to face me himself." He laughed, cold and sharp. "You're brave. Stupid, but brave." "Tell him," I said. "I've got more than files. I've got his secrets." His smile faded. He stood, walked away. I felt eyes on me. Feds? Gray's men? I didn't know. Ray called, frustrated. He didn't bite. Gray's too smart. "Then we make him desperate," I said. "Leak a file." Ray hesitated. "That's risky, Walter. It could backfire." "Do it," I said. "One file, just enough to scare him." That night, Ray leaked a recording. Gray's voice, clear as day. "Planning a deal with Klein. It hit the news by morning. Headlines screamed, 'Real estate tycoon tied to crime ring.' Gray's empire shook. Stocks dropped. His name was everywhere. I watched it unfold, my coffee cold. Sarah called, voice trembling. "Dad, it's on TV. Is this you?" "Part of it," I said. "Stay low." I go. Vince sent a warning. "Gray's men are moving. They're looking for you." "Let them come," I said. "I'm ready." I checked my rifle, loaded the truck. My house wasn't safe anymore. Neither was the mansion. Sarah insisted on coming back. "I want to help," she said. "You're not fighting," I said. "You're my daughter, not a soldier." She stood tall, like Ellen. "I'm not losing you, Dad." I nodded, my heart heavy. "Then we do this together." Ray had a plan. Gray's meeting a contact. Tomorrow, hotel rooftop. "Why there?" I asked. "He's desperate," Ray said. "Your leak worked. He's cleaning house." I gripped Ellen's notebook. "I'm going." Ray didn't argue. "Feds will be there. Don't do anything stupid." The hotel was all glass, towering over Chicago. I parked my truck in the garage. Rusty, shot up, but mine. I carried the decoy flash drive. Ellen's real files were with Ray. The rooftop was windy, city lights below. Gray stood alone, his back to me. No guards, no tricks. "Grayson," he said, turning. His eyes were cold, calculating. "You're persistent." "You used my family," I said. "Ellen, Sarah, me." He smirked, just like Ethan. "Ellen was a problem, like you." "What did you do to her?" I demanded, stepping closer. "She got in my way," he said, "so I cut her out." My blood ran cold. "You killed her." "No," he said. "She left, but she paid a price." I gripped the decoy drive. "This ends you, Gray." He laughed. "You think I care about your files? I'm untouchable." The feds moved in, silent. Lights flashed. Gray didn't flinch. "You lose, Grayson." Sarah was waiting at the safe house. I called her, voice shaking. "Gray's down. Feds have him." "Is it over?" she asked, hopeful. "Almost," I said. "One last thing." I didn't tell her about Ellen. Not yet. I sat with Ellen's notebook, her words alive. She'd fought Gray, left me the tools to finish it. I wrote another letter. "Ellen, I'm ending this. For you. For Sarah." Everyone thought I'd given up, but they didn't know the card I was holding. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was a man with Ellen's truth. The safe house was too still. Sarah sat quietly, her eyes on the floor. Ellen's notebook was my lifeline, its pages heavy with truth. Marcus Gray thought he was untouchable. He was wrong. I held his secrets. I drove home at dawn. My truck's engine groaned, but it held. The house looked the same. Worn, small, mine. But it felt different. Gray knew where I lived. I checked the locks, loaded my rifle, waited. Ray called, his voice low. "Feds are building a case. Your files are gold." "Will they get Gray?" I asked, gripping Ellen's notebook. "They're trying," Ray said, "but he's got lawyers. Connections." I clenched my jaw. Then we pushed harder. Sarah came home, escorted by Vince. She hugged me, her grip tight. "Is it really over, Dad?" "Almost," I said. "Gray's still out there." Her face fell. What did Mom know about him? I hesitated. She fought him, left me the tools to finish it. Vince stayed, his laptop open. He pulled up more of Ellen's files. "Found something new," he said. "A video, encrypted." My heart raced. "Play it." Ellen's face filled the screen, younger, tired, but fierce. "Walter, if you're watching, I'm gone." Sarah gasped. I couldn't breathe. "I worked with Marcus Gray," Ellen said. "Real estate deals. Legal at first. Then I saw his world. Money laundering. Blackmail. He used your name, Walter. I tried to stop him." Her voice broke. "I hid the mansion. The money. For you. For Sarah. Use it. Bury him." The video ended. Sarah sobbed. I sat frozen, Ellen's words echoing. "She knew," Sarah whispered. "She was protecting us." I nodded, my throat tight. "And we'll honor her." Vince looked grim. "Gray's coming for that video. It's his death sentence." "Let him come," I said. "I'm ready." Ray called, urgent. "Gray's making a move. Tonight. His penthouse." "What kind?" I asked. "He's meeting a fixer. Someone to clean his mess." I gripped the phone. "I'm there." "Walter, don't," Ray said. "Feds are handling it." "Ellen's fight is mine," I said. "Set it up." Sarah grabbed my arm. "Dad, you can't. He'll kill you." "I won't let him hurt you," I said. "Not again." Her eyes searched mine. "What's the mansion, Dad?" I took a breath. "Your mother's gift, our leverage." I drove to Chicago, my truck rattling. The penthouse loomed, all glass and power. I parked in an alley, rifle hidden under a coat. Ray met me, his face tense. "Feds are inside," he said. "Hidden. Gray's expecting his fixer." "I'm the fixer," I said, holding the decoy flash drive. Ray shook his head. "You're crazy, Walter." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm done hiding." The penthouse was cold, sterile. Gray sat at a glass table, alone. His eyes locked on me. "Grayson, you don't quit, do you?" "You used my family," I said. "Ellen, Sarah, my name." He leaned back, smirking. "Ellen was a mistake. Like you." My blood boiled. "She left me proof. You're finished." He laughed, sharp and cold. "Proof? You think that matters? I own this city." I held up the decoy drive. "This says different." His eyes narrowed. "Give it to me." Footsteps behind me. Gray's men, guns drawn. I didn't flinch. "Call them off," I said. "Why?" Gray said. "You're nothing. A nobody with a junk truck." I smiled, slow and sure. "You don't know me." The feds burst in. Lights flashed. Shouts echoed. Gray's men dropped their guns. He stood, calm, too calm. "You'll regret this, Grayson." They cuffed him, dragged him out. I watched, my heart steady. Back at the safe house, Sarah was waiting. She ran to me, sobbing. "Dad, you did it?" "Gray's down," I said. "Feds have him." She hugged me tight. "Can we go home now?" "Soon," I said. "One last piece." I sat with Ellen's notebook. Her video played in my mind. She'd fought Gray, hid a fortune. For me, for Sarah. I wrote another letter. "Ellen, I'm finishing this. For us." Vince called, his voice shaky. "Gray's out! Bailed! Hours ago!" My stomach dropped. "How?" "Money," Vince said. "He's coming for you." I checked my rifle, loaded the truck. Gray wasn't done. Neither was I. Sarah looked at me, scared, but strong. "What's next, Dad?" "We end this," I said. "For good." I drove to the mansion. My mansion. Ellen's gift. The gate opened with her code. I walked inside, Sarah at my side. Marble floors gleamed. My old truck looked small outside. "This is yours?" Sarah asked, eyes wide. "Ours," I said. "Your mother's legacy." Gray's men came at midnight. 3 cars, lights off. I was ready. Cameras I'd installed caught every move. I sent the footage to Ray, to the feds. Sarah hid upstairs. I stood in the study, rifle ready. Gray walked in, alone. His smirk was gone. "You lose, Grayson," he said. "Give me the files." "No," I said. "You're on my turf now." Feds swarmed the mansion. Gray's men were cuffed outside. He didn't fight, just stared. "This isn't over," he said. "It is for you," I said. They took him away, again, this time no bail. Sarah hugged me, tears falling. "Is it really over, Dad?" I nodded. "It's over, we're free." But I wasn't done. Not quite. Everyone thought I'd given up, but they didn't know the card I was holding. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was a man with Ellen's vengeance. The mansion's lights glowed against the night. Sarah stood beside me, her eyes searching. Ellen's notebook lay on the table, its pages worn. My truck, rusty and scarred, sat outside. Gray was in custody. Ethan was gone, but something felt unfinished. I sat with Ellen's video, paused on her face. Her words haunted me. "Use it, Walter. Bury him." I'd done that. Gray's empire was crumbling. News outlets ran Ellen's files. His name was poison now. But why did I feel hollow? Sarah touched my arm. "Dad, what's wrong?" Vince called, his voice urgent. "Found one last file. Ellen's. It's big." "Send it," I said, my heart pounding. A video arrived. Ellen, again, older now, frail. Her eyes were fierce, unyielding. "Walter, if you're watching, you've found the mansion, the money, my fight." I leaned closer, Sarah beside me. Ellen's voice was steady. "Gray wasn't just my partner. He was my mistake. I helped him build his network, laundered money, hid deals. I thought I could control it." Sarah gasped. My chest tightened. "Ellen, a criminal?" "I turned on him," Ellen said. "Stole his secrets, built the mansion. For you." "For Sarah." Her voice broke. "I left to protect you. Gray threatened Sarah's life. I paid the price. Cancer wasn't the whole story." The screen went black. Sarah sobbed, clinging to me. "Mom did this for us?" I nodded, tears in my eyes. "She fought for us." The twist hit like a freight train. Ellen hadn't just hidden a fortune. She'd built it to trap Gray. Every deal, every dollar, was a breadcrumb leading to his downfall. She'd used his own game against him. And I'd finished it. Gray was done, his network exposed, his power gone. Sarah looked at me, her voice small. "What about Ethan?" I clenched my jaw. Ethan, the man who mocked my truck, stole my name, hurt my daughter. He was out, feds cutting him a deal. But not from me. I drove to his last known address. My truck rattled, loyal as ever. Ethan was there, packing a car, running again. "Walt," he said, startled. His smirk was gone. "What do you want?" "You laughed at me," I said, stepping closer. "Called me a nobody." "I was wrong," he said, hands up. "I'm sorry." "Sorry doesn't cut it," I said. "You hurt Sarah. Use my name." I pulled out a deed. The mansion's title. In Sarah's name now. "This is hers," I said. "Not yours. Never yours." Ethan's face fell. "You're rich. That junk truck." I smiled, cold and sharp. "This truck brought me here to end you." I drove him to the mansion. He sat silent, eyes wide. The gates opened, marble floors gleaming. Sarah stood inside, strong and free. "You're done, Ethan," she said. He stammered, no words left. I handed him a letter. Ellen's last note, copied. "You lose, Gray. And anyone who follows him." The feds were waiting outside. Ethan's deal was off. Ellen's files named him too. He'd been Gray's pawn, but no more. They cuffed him, dragged him away. His shouts faded. Sarah hugged me, tears falling. "Dad, you did it. For Mom." "For you," I said, "for Tommy." We walked to the lakefront. the mansion behind us, my truck parked nearby, rusty but proud. I thought of Ellen. Her fight, her sacrifice, she'd given me everything. I wrote one last letter. Ellen, we won. Sarah's safe. Your legacy lives. I tucked it in the notebook. Sarah took my hand. What now, Dad? We live, I said, for your mother, for your son. She smiled, real and bright, for us. The mansion was ours, Ellen's gift. I'd give it to Tommy, Sarah's boy, my grandson. The future I'd fought for. Ethan's mocking laugh was gone. Gray's empire was dust. Everyone thought I'd given up, but they didn't know the card I was holding. I wasn't just an old man with a truck. I was a man with Ellen's heart. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of the story in the comments. To listen the next story, click on the box on the left. Thank you for watching.